Thank you for the opportunity. My laptop is acting up a bit, so I let the presentation load in a bit. I've been working, I'll just give a brief introduction about myself and how I've been associated with the Botnar project. So I am an architect planner. I've been working with WRI India for the last 5 years almost, and most of it has been the Botnar Child Road Safety program, which we started working. I mean, we started working on the grant somewhere around 2017, and the project started in 2018. Um the first phase of the project of the BCRSC program was basically the Safer Commute for School Children uh, project, which focused on improving safety of school children around schools, and that was somewhere May 2018 to uh, December 2020. And around the same time, we started uh, with the Safer Mobility for Youth project, which focused on improving the area around colleges for the college-going students. I'll just share my screen, and Kim, if you could let me know if that is visible. Can you see my screen? The screen, Kim?
Yes, we can see your screen.
All right. So there's a lot that has been done in the 4-5 years of the BCRSC program. Uh, a lot of you already know uh, what the phase one and phase two activities were. I just briefly go over these activities, but because I'm today talking more about how we have been engaging the stakeholders, very briefly, if we look at the larger project level, at a road safety level, usually these are the our are not available. These are our partners in any road safety project. We have the government, we have the private sector, the civil society, the users. That's the general public, who's the end user of the roads. Media, intergovernmental organization, funding agencies, and academia. There might be a lot of more which I may not have included, but these are some of the very common ones. And with the Botnar Child Road Safety Challenge, the two projects that we did, we were in a way, it was a collaborative effort of these four different stakeholders, the key stakeholders. So Foundation Botnar and Global Road Safety Partnership starting this program. Then in the first phase, we had NASCOM Foundation as one of the private sectors. The key partnership that was there. There are other partners, other private sector partners we have, uh, but they are more activity specific or a strategy specific. But at the project level, at the program level, these are the these are the partners we had. And phase one activities in a very brief nutshell was divided into two parts. One was improving the infrastructure around the schools. So we partnered with 5 schools in Rohtak, uh, did some focus group discussions with the students, did a very detailed uh, commute study, a mobility pattern study to understand how children are traveling, what are the modes they are using, where are they traveling to, what are the challenges they are facing, what routes they are taking. And based on this children's mobility study, we identified priority locations in the city, about 13 kilometers of roads where the children would be the probability of children traveling on these roads would be higher. So that's a 13-kilometer loop that we identified. We surveyed it, and then we recommended improvements, and these improvements were further divided into two parts. One, we would make a preliminary recommendation that we could actually try it out on ground through tactical urbanism. And once the tactical urbanism interventions at certain locations are successful, based on the learnings from the TU event, we prepare the final drawings and submit the drawings for execution. That was the first part. The second part of the same project was building the capacity of the city, training the engineers, the traffic police, training students, making them aware about road safety, engaging the community through Rahagiri programs and etc., and leveraging the media to reach out to the larger audience. This was basically a very concise elaboration of the safer commute for school children. This was the first project that we did. Uh, Apart from the on-site execution, everything is over in this project. The second phase, which was the Safer Mobility for Youth project, again, we partnered with four colleges this time, and tried to understand how the youth in the city are actually traveling. Uh, Unfortunately, this project, when it started, we were in the middle of the COVID pandemic. Uh, so a lot of the educational institutes at that time in India were closed. So we were not able to get a real the kind of the real life picture that you get in service we got in phase one was not available in the phase two, because for a significant period in the project, the educational institutions remained closed. But activity point of view, the idea was to survey the students, just like we did in phase one, understand how they are traveling. Uh, Apart from identifying the locations where college students usually hang out or travel, this time we also focused on improving the mode of travel, because uh, until the age of 18, while you are going to school, you are generally dropped by an adult. So there is always an adult caretaker around. Uh, but once you cross that 18 years, your mobility sort of starts becoming independent. You drive your own vehicle. So that is the time when we would, you know, like to understand which are the modes the youth use, which are the most frequently used modes in the city, and do a sort of a mobility alternative assessment of all the travel modes available, passenger travel modes available to the youth, and prioritize two modes which are most used but in need of an improvement. So improving the modes, preparing recommendations for them, and also parallelly identifying the routes and going through the same process of doing preliminary recommendations, tactical urbanism, final drawing stages, and adoption. Implementation of the engineering interventions. The second part, again, being the technical workshops. How do you build the capacity of the officials? Uh, Stakeholder engagement, this time we kept as a uh, separate activity, because the technical workshops basically is police engineers having a combined workshops rather than isolated workshops with just engineers or just police, bringing all the different departments in the Rohtak city at one table, so that we can have a coordinated approach to road safety and safer urban mobility. That went into the technical workshops, but stakeholder engagement specifically was reaching out to the community, which includes a lot of uh, stakeholders like auto rickshaw drivers or the bus operators, uh, elders in the community, students. I mean, there's a whole list to it, but uh, people who are it's not just about the community, but people who are part of the transport sector, bringing them all together. So a separate strategy for a stakeholder engagement. So this was one activity. Then we also wanted to, when we were writing the grant, the idea was to engage youth in this conversation, increase their participation in these conversations. So we had thought of identifying youth groups or individuals who are passionate about road safety or even passionate about bringing some positive change in their city. We identify them, mentor them, and make them youth champions. Uh, but unfortunately, as I said, because of the pandemic, all the colleges and educational institutes were closed. We were not able to engage with the youth as much as we would have wanted to. A lot of the engagements, a lot of interaction with the youth at the time was happening online, virtually. So this was one part. Then the other was youth engagement through so youth champions was just one activity, but engaging youth, making them actively participate in the project, was another activity, and again media outreach. As of now, the greens are the ones which we have already completed. We are already doing tactical urbanism. As Kim mentioned, we have done 3 trials. We have to do 2 more, and the workshops are pretty much done. And there's just one workshop with the officials left. Youth champions we could not create, but instead we did something else, which I'll come on in the next slides, and media outreach is going on. So this is where the project stands uh, from a status point of view. But largely, if you see the last 4.5 years of the Botnar Child Road Safety Program, the BCRST program, both the projects, it is primarily in this bucket that we establish local partnerships. It could be the government, it could be the schools, the colleges. Uh, that partnership is established, then we try to understand how the city is functioning, especially from a lens of a child and the youth. Uh, then we prioritize our modes, our public spaces, streets that we want to improve under this project, prepare preliminary interventions. This could be design interventions, engineering interventions, traffic management solutions, digital solutions, make these preliminary improvements, try them out, show it to the stakeholders that whatever we are thinking actually works, you should implement it, and then take it for implementation. And on the capacity building side, we have these workshops and trainings with officials and the school students, youth and community engagement, and also engaging with the media, social media, print media, and everything. So these are the buckets, and under each of these larger buckets, we have been engaging with a lot of different stakeholders. Uh, I may not be able to cover all of them. I will be covering tactical urbanism, youth engagement, and the execution, the green ones. But I'm happy to take questions about the other activities as well, how we have engaged different stakeholders in all of these activities. So when we talk about the stakeholders, especially in Rohtak, uh, the government stakeholders that in the slide that I showed before, the government stakeholders can be further, especially for the case of Rohtak, can be further divided into the local administration, that is the the Deputy Commissioner's Office, the district administration in this case, uh, engineers of the government, municipal engineers, the traffic police. There is a regional transport authority in the city, in the district. The elected representatives and the state government, they all become part of the government stakeholders. Then we would have the community, which can be further subdivided into, uh, especially for this project, the college students, school students, educational institutes, teachers, parents, and the public at large. Uh, then we have the civil society, youth groups, NGOs, local NGOs, uh, and we have the media, the mainstream media being television, newspapers, radio, and social media, of course. These are, I'm sure there are a lot of other stakeholders that we are interacting with. Uh, I just uh, clubbed them into, it was an others for me, but there are still more stakeholders that we interact with within this project. They are vendors, they are our consultants. It could include our surveyors, people who are documenting our trials, the labor that helps us, the contractors that help us, uh, subject experts like professionals who helped us in the jury of the different competitions we had. Transport operators include bus operators, auto rickshaw drivers, bus conductors, all these people. So there are a lot of people that you're talking to when you're. In fact, it's like talking to the whole city. It's a collaborative project. Just WRI India going or GRSP through the funds they are giving us. Just the two, three of us uh, doing the project is not actually how this project is working. It's a combination. It's a collaboration between all these people. We interact with some people more than the others, but these are all the stakeholders that we interact with. Now, when we talk specifically about tactical urbanism, these green ones uh, are the stakeholders that we generally and directly engage with during a tactical urbanism event. Um, all of them play a different role. They come in at different times, but primarily these are the stakeholders that we have to engage with in a tactical urbanism event. These are the people who we engage with generally in the 13 or so trials that we have done so far. So if we look at the process that we follow, once we have the location and we have done the designs, uh, the preliminary design stage is the first step that we have to take to the authorities, take the design approval. Once the designs are approved by the authorities, uh, we start procuring the trial materials, document the location that we are going to try for an existing scenario. What is the situation before the tactical urbanism happens? Do the trial. Uh, then once the tactical urbanism, once these temporary installations are placed, we try this design for about 15 to 20 days. It's sometimes more also, but a minimum of 15 days because we need time for the city to, get used to the new design also. And then once they get used to it, then we want to do an analysis of the before and after. So managing and operating the trial, and then the post documentation just to see a before and after. And this is where we start engaging with the stakeholders. Even at the preliminary drawing stages, it is possible to engage with different stakeholders. In the first phase, I remember the uh, the designs were developed with inputs from the school students, but that was it. there was a couple of workshops done where we wanted to understand how the children would, see how do children envision the streets in front of their schools, and getting cues from those sheets. We developed our preliminary drawings. But in this phase, in the Safer Mobility project, uh, the second phase, these preliminary drawings have been developed by uh, the winners of the Mara Rohtak competition. It's a placemaking competition. I'll talk about it later also. We did a design competition. So the winners actually made these designs. And these winners were all young professionals. Some of them are students of architecture, urban design. Some of them are very young professionals. So in a way, the preliminary drawing stage also has a lot of stakeholder engagement. Uh, but once you have these designs, and when you go to the design approval stage, you actually submit your designs to the district administration. The engineers who own the road owning agencies, basically, they need to approve that whatever changes in the engineering we are proposing, they are okay with that. And traffic police actually plays the biggest role in the entire trial, because it is the traffic police who has to ultimately manage the traffic uh, once the tactical urbanism is done. So this is where we are engaging with the government stakeholders. Material procurement is basically the vendors. Pre-documentation is somewhere where we start engaging with the public uh, and the traffic police. So with the traffic police, actually, this happens before the preliminary drawing also, because you want to understand more about this location where you are doing the trial. But at this stage, when you are already into the tactical urbanism process, at that time we sort of do a pre and post survey with the people who use that location on a daily basis, on a regular basis. So it could be people living in that area or the students living in that area. The traffic police personnel actually managing those locations. Uh, Vendors here includes, actually, this was the people who help us in doing the pre-documentation. But just while saying it, I remember that general public would also include the street vendors, the shops. So everyone who is in and around that location, we need to take a pre-intervention survey of them, what they think about the location, how it can be improved, and those things. And then comes the day of the trial or the night of the trial, where you actually, uh, this is the time when we can actually engage the city. Everyone in the city is welcome to, come and help us do the tactical urbanism. I think it's only the stage where you are marking the designs is where we go and do it. But once the marking is done on the ground, everything is, it can be engaging. So we can have the public come and do the masking for us. They can paint, because it's all now beautification. How do you make the place more lively? Till the stage of marking, you are actually doing the design work. But once the design work is done, then it is all about celebrating that in the new reclaimed space. So general public, students, civil society, sometimes local administration would also come and help. Uh, Traffic police is needed all the time. The police is needed during the trial for security purposes, also for managing the traffic also. But they also become a part of it. Uh, they can also come and paint, so in that sense, the traffic police is also a part of this trial. Media, sometimes they do come. but it is always good to have the journalist or the media actually knowing about the trial before the trial has started. Uh, because in a way, this has been my personal experience, that if we are able to share the designs or what changes we are about to make in geometrical changes we are about to make in at a stretch, and this gets published, it is easier for the community to understand it. Usually, what is happening is that we just go and quickly, on one night, we'll just change everything. And only the people crossing that intersection at that very moment would be curious about what you are doing, how it will help, and everything. But the larger community, which will come the next day, uh, they are sort of uh, overwhelmed by the changes that get made. So engaging with the media becomes very important, especially post trial. So during the installation, these are all the stakeholders that you can engage with, and then post trial, once the temporary installations are uh, installed, uh, then it is primarily the traffic police who has to manage and sort of guide all the users in the right way. So if there has been any change in the flow of traffic, uh, it is the police who has to regulate it. Pedestrian crossings have to be regulated. Uh, where are the street vendors? If we have provided space for street vendors, it is ultimately the police who has to go and regulate all these things. So the 15 days of trial that happens, as WRI India, we just go and do the trial. I think it is the traffic police which actually makes sure that the the temporary installations that we installed stay in place, and the location functions the way that we have intended to. That's where the traffic police comes in, and that is why I think somewhere around pre-documentation stage is where sometimes we also, for more complex locations, we also engage the traffic police, uh, where the traffic personnel, the constables who are actually going to manage the location, we try to explain the design to them, how we envision the traffic flows, how we envision the space allocations, so that once the trial is operational, they are able to better manage the new space. So traffic police is the key stakeholder at this point of time. They also require a lot of volunteers, uh, and of course, it is the general public who has to ultimately follow the new design. And then the post documentation, where we again do a survey with the traffic police personnel about how they feel, how easy or difficult has it become to manage the traffic, uh, what are the opinions of the general public, how do the students feel about the new design, and again, our vendors who have been instrumental. So this is, I mean, there are a lot of stages where you can engage even within the tactical urbanism process. There are a lot of ways how you can and when you can engage with different stakeholders. But I believe tactical urbanism, and this has been my experience in Rohtak, that this is one activity which really sort of accelerates our conversations in the city. Every time we do a tactical urbanism, the entire city gets to know the kind of work that you are doing. Uh, and the conversations to get these things implemented uh, are more fruitful. I mean, ultimately, so far we have not seen any implementation, but people are more receptive and more, uh, you know, they do see the benefit of what we are doing when we do the tactical urbanism. So engaging the community at that time becomes very crucial. It's it has been one of the biggest tools we have had in the projects, this tactical urbanism activity. So this was the tactical urbanism, specifically with regards to youth engagement. Uh, Apart from the focus group discussions we do, the surveys we do with the students, or workshops we do, Rahagiri has been one thing that WRI India, being a co-founder of Rahagiri, that is something that we always leverage for engaging with the community, the youth. Uh, but apart from the traditional ways of engaging with the youth, especially this in this project, we launched three challenges, basically two challenges: the Rotec challenge and the Mara Rotak placemaking competition. The Rotec challenges are actually tech challenges. They had we, we had two tech challenges and one design competition. And although the tech challenges were a part of the project since the beginning, Mara Rotak placemaking competition is something that had been improvised. So before, when I said that we had this creation of youth champion activities, but we were not able to engage with the students, with the youth as we had intended to or envisioned while preparing the grant. But even with the pandemic and all the colleges remaining shut, uh, we were still interacting with a lot of students online virtually, and we already had this component of designing the locations that we have identified. So in phase one, what we had done was all the geometric design, all the engineering interventions were that were proposed were designed in-house by WRI India. Uh, this was supposed to be the case this time also, but because we were not able to engage with the students, this was an idea that came up within the team that why don't we launch a competition when we say that we want to design a space for youth, when we want to design streets for youth, although some of us are still in the youth bracket. But why don't we give these locations to the youth for them to design? It would be more apt in a way that it is the youth who are designing the spaces because they would understand their challenges and aspirations better than us. While we have done a lot of surveys, we have done a lot of focus group discussions and interactions with youth in the last 4 years. But ultimately, that is, in our case, it is all second-hand information. But if we give the design uh, opportunity to the youth, it would be, we felt that it would be more relevant. And that is where we uh, came up with this idea of having this placemaking competition. We had identified, uh, okay, I'll come to that later. First, I think we have the Rotec challenges. So for the Rotec challenge, we partnered with Nagaro and Skillenza. Nagaro is a software company based out of Gurgaon. They have been very old partners of WRI, has been supporting us in Ragiri and other projects as well. They were our technical sort of mentors. This being a technology competition and WRI India being experts on road safety more than technology, uh, we needed Nagaro to come in and mentor students and even us for that matter on the technology aspect of things. So the idea of the Rotec challenges were to invite young innovators, to develop technological solutions that could improve the road safety and urban mobility for the youth in Rohtak. Initially, the idea was to have this engagement only with youth in Rohtak, but that was actually limiting our scope a lot, and it was in a way limiting the technological capacity of youth. So again, when this challenge was launched, it was during the, I think, the second lockdown or the first lockdown. So it was again during the peak of COVID. So we had an opportunity to interact with the youth across the country. This being an online challenge, and although we did want to interact with a lot of students in person, we were planning some in person events, but that could not happen. Uh, but opening this challenge up to the entire country uh, gave us the benefit of reaching out to a lot of youth. So in the first challenge, we saw more than 1,200 registrations. So that was the scale of interaction we had virtually, but this is the number of people, number of youth we could interact. So Nagaro was our technology partner. Scalenza was the platform partner, uh, and this is how uh, the both challenges in fact have progressed. We launched the challenge. We do a quick orientation webinar with the registrants where we actually talk about why we are doing this challenge, what are the themes, and what is expected from the participants. Then they send us a concept note about what is the you know what is their thought. It does not include any technical details. It only talks about what is the problem they are trying to address, and very briefly, how do they plan to do it. Then they submit a proof of concept and a prototype, and we do a jury. The jury includes people from WRI India, Nagaro, but also people from Rohtak city. Because the idea of these challenges was that we did not want these challenges to be an academic exercise. We wanted something which is implementable. The solution should be implementable. We did not, it was not an ideathon basically. So the last step was incubation and adoption. So the jury and incubation stages was where uh, the active involvement of the government partners in the project started playing a role. They were part of the whole challenge before also, but the last two stages are the stages where they had more engagement in these challenges. So across the two challenges that we did, we had more than 1,800 registrations. More than 75 concept notes were received. Uh, Two winners and two special mentions. So in total, we have about four solutions that we seem are implementable. They do need a lot of tweaking and upgradation, but they are pretty much ready to implement if the district administration and the people who are supposed to implement actually take them up. So these were the Rotec challenges. There's a lot to it actually, but I'll be happy to answer if there are any specific questions about the Rotec challenges. Uh, I'm sorry, the Mara Rohtak placemaking competition slide is not complete. So basically, this was we had identified 11 locations in the city uh, where the where youth in the city usually used to hang out before the COVID happened. So plus we had a lot of interactions with the government. We have been WRI India has been there in Rohtak for so many years since 2000 before 2018 actually. So after consultation with a lot of people through the surveys, we had identified 11 locations in the city, which we wanted to redesign. Out of these 11 locations, uh, two locations were greenfield locations. So one of the greenfield locations was actually, so there is a railway line crossing through, cutting across the city, that was getting elevated. So it was a railway track on ground. The city was actually taking this railway track above the ground. So now once the track goes up, the space below the new track is is empty now. And the proposal that, or the vision that the city at that time had, was to convert it into a road that connects the two ends of the city. And we saw it as an opportunity to, you know, if we can design it in a way, uh, in a better way, it could actually it has a potential for becoming a great urban space, a green space. It can, I mean, there are so many ways of looking at it than just making it into a road. So that was one greenfield space, and another one where we did the first trial, Jajjar Road, is where these were the two sites which we actually gave to consultants. Again, these consultants, uh, they are very young consultants. I think some um, some 32, 33 years old kids, uh, not kids, sorry, but young startups in a way, young design startups. And the rest of the nine locations, we included them in our Mara Rohtak competition. So there were nine sites, nine prizes to be won, and the incentives were also. And here also, we partnered with the professional body in India for architects, that's the Indian Institute of Architects. We partnered with them because they have they are actually not only uh, a professional body of architects, but they also have a good network with the colleges imparting architectural education and urban design education. So they became a key partner uh, in this engagement. And then we had three external juries, rather than having the jury from within WRI, or from within the key partners. We thought of having external jury members. So we had three experts. Dr. Kavas Kapadia, he's uh, he's a very old professor. Um there were two other people. So that was the whole idea, that uh, it's not just us, it's not just WRI, assessing your the design submissions made by the participants, but we should have a third, fourth, fifth eye, so that the best comes uh, out of the competition. So we had nine uh, sites. Please ignore the green graphic. It has not been changed. We had nine sites, and we had more than 550 registrations, uh, from which I think about 80 teams were formed, and we received 40 concept designs in the first stage. Now, this number was actually lesser than what we had anticipated. Uh, these 40 designs were across four or five sites, rather than nine sites, because of which we had to drop some of the sites. Uh, and whichever sites were getting dropped from the competition, we gave it to the two consultants we had already engaged with, for the other two greenfield sites. So after 40 concept designs, this was a three-stage competition. The first stage was submitting a conceptual design in the concept note, then a further detailing of the design, and finally a presentation to the jury. Uh, And after this entire process, we had 8 winners and one special mention. Now, this was not the end of the competition. What we also did was uh, before the competition started, we had said that whoever is the winner, whichever is the winning team, has to also prepare the tender level drawings for so that we can submit it to the government for implementation. Again, just like the Rotec challenge, the idea was not to have these competition as an academic exercise, but we want something that can be implemented. It's a real life project, so the competition and the designs should also be real life. So this is how we did a competition, but at the same time engaged with the winners, and we still continue to have this engagement. Most of the sites have been developed, barring a couple of sites where the details are being made. So these were the jury members. And lastly, I would like to talk about the on-ground execution. This is something that GRSP and we have been talking a lot about. So we have almost 4.5 years of work done. Um, there has been a lot of investment done, and as a team, we also want to see some on-ground change. And ultimately, all the work that we are doing, uh, it has no real value if it does not get implemented. And the implementation, unfortunately, is not in our hands. While doing all these activities is implementing the interventions is in the hands of the local administration or the government partners, basically, not just local administration. So phase one is where we were interacting more with the municipal engineers, the local administration, and the traffic police. Uh, the primary engagement was we developed the tender level drawing, submitted to the engineering department, and keep doing that to and fro with them about getting it implemented. Uh, in phase two, because we also had the mode specific interventions where we are trying to improve the modes, the travel modes, that is where the regional transport authority comes in. So while our engagement with municipal engineers, traffic police, and administration remains, we also now start engaging with the regional transport authority. And yet we do not see much going on. I mean, implementation is still an issue. Uh, and this is when we started having conversation with GRSP uh, that we should perhaps, uh, rather than taking a bottom to top approach, we should actually have a top to bottom approach where we actually start talking to the state government. Uh, before before the this PCRSC program started, we had another program, the Haryana Vision Zero program, which was at the state level, and having some engagement at the state level provided us that leverage to get a lot of things done at the district and the city levels. It was that engagement that was needed, and this is something the light green ones, the four partners on the left, are something that we have just recently started engaging with. So state government, we have had just a couple of meetings a month ago. We have also started interacting with the elected representatives. It's a tricky engagement, but it is something that we are trying to, uh, I mean, it depends from representative to representative and geography to geography. But this is something that we have started exploring. And then the media. The power of media is something that we realized. We knew it, but we started exploring with it very recently. Uh, it is not until that the media starts, sort of creating a bit of pressure on the government, or even if they start generally talking about the importance of the work that we do, is it is after that that the general public also, starts understanding the importance of the work. They start demanding. So we have reached a stage where rather than interacting only uh, with these three stakeholders, we have reached a stage where we actually uh, want to include a lot of people, just so that there is a higher probability of the interventions getting implemented. So that was it from my side. I'll be happy to take any questions if there are. And thank you, Kim and Sani, Cynthia, for the opportunity. Thank you.
You're on mute, Kim.
Oh, sorry about this. Again, that happened. So it is really impressive. The presentation is really comprehensive, and I share some photo of the technical urbanisms at the chart, and also the picture of them engaging the press, and the results are really impressive, and I think they receive really good feedbacks from the stakeholders. And recently, they also started using permanent structure, permanent devices to improve that, so that the improvement will not just last for 15 days, it will last longer, and the city people can really see the benefit of that. So we are open for questions. Anyone have any questions? Please feel free to ask. If not, I will start first. So what I understand that the technical, Lynn had a question. I'll let Lynn start first because you're running short on time. Lynn, please go ahead.
Thank you for the very interesting presentation. I have two questions actually. The first one is about the regulations. Because sometimes we come up with some innovative ideas, but the regulations, the local regulations, don't allow us to do that. So how did you face that during the planning and implementation, and how did you tackle that? My second question is that sometimes, because I heard that you put the temporary interventions, I mean remediations, for 15 days. So sometimes it takes a lot longer than that to really see the changes and see how it works and how the system works better. So how did you, convince other stakeholders on that? Because sometimes their ideas might be maybe 6 months or even 6 years to have something permanent set up. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Lynn. I'll start with the second one first. Uh, this is actually true. They do take a lot of time to implement these things. In fact, uh, this is something that we recently faced, that there is an intersection that we did a tactical urbanism in the first phase uh, for about a month, after which the COVID lockdown, the first lockdown was imposed. So that trial remained there for forever almost. And then we had it removed. At that time, we kept telling them, we also had a lot of videographic evidence about the success of the trial, but the government was not, keen on implementing at that stage, because a lot of funds were getting and a lot of resources were getting redirected towards COVID, fighting COVID. But now, after 2 years, almost after 2 years, the situation has become the same. And the last meeting that I had with the administration, there was this a senior bureaucrat who asked me to do a trial again. So I do know that they have started looking at this as a a free passage. It's like we have been doing these trials, and it is not costing anything to the government. So while we want them to implement it, they are just looking at another trial, another trial, another trial. Uh, about the duration, see, the idea was initially the idea was having these tactical urbanism events, the trial to run for at least a month. But logistically, it was getting very difficult for us because you have to leave your temporary installations at the mercy of the citizens for about a month. And then there are issues of vandalism and everything also. And because these resources, the trial materials have been, bought from the resources that GRSP is giving us, we need to keep we need to efficiently utilize those resources. The ideal way of uh, doing this would have been that the city gives us these resources. So if we are using barricades or ballasts or whatever trial materials are being used in the trial, they should actually come from the city. And we have done such interventions under different projects in different geographies where the city has actually provided us with these materials. Now, when the materials are coming from the city, then we have no issues of a longer duration of tactical urbanism because then the onus of safekeeping of the trial materials is not on us. Uh, from a from an analysis point of view, we take 24 hours of pre-intervention and 24 hours of post-intervention CCTV recordings. And the idea is that we don't do this post-intervention recording right after installing the materials. We do it about a week or so after the materials have been installed, so that the users, at least the regular users, get used to the new design. So that gives, I would agree that it's not a real and accurate, very accurate analysis, but it gives you a sense of how successful the design is. Regarding the first question on regulations, uh, it is, I think it's a continuous fight we will have. Uh, and it's not just about regulation, it is just the novelty of the thought that you are bringing on the table. uh, the way we look at road safety is very different from how the administrators and the bureaucrats look at road safety. uh, Actually, they don't even sometimes look at road safety, they are only looking at traffic management to an extent. So this is something that you keep need you need to keep having these conversations, mentoring them, sometimes through capacity building workshops, sometimes informally. It is just it is a person, it's an individual perception, I would say, because the administrators also keep changing. So there would be some administrator who would be very sort of receptive about the ideas and let you do a lot of changes. But then there would be certain administrators who would not let you do those. So it's an ongoing process. You just need to keep focusing on the why of it, why the work that we are doing is important for the city. Yeah.
Thank you, Lynn. That's a really good question. Yeah, the standard is something that we are facing because most engineer will not go, would not challenge the national standards on when they design the road. This is something that we will take time for us to engage them, and hopefully we'll be able, the next generation engineer will see the benefit and start working on that as well. Are there any other questions?
One quick one, Kim.
Yes.
I know we're out for time, but what would be, I've been working with you, Vaibhav, for the last 5 years, and yes, we really appreciate WRI's collaboration and partnership on the BCRSE these few years. What would be your biggest takeaway and lessons so far in implementing these projects, particularly us going through, that very turbulent time of COVID? Thank you.
I think it has been, for me personally, the learning has been that we need to collaborate with the government, plus, I mean, all the stakeholders actually, not even just the government. That hexagonal slide that I showed, it had so many stakeholders, and our engagement with the, different stakeholders has been, the amount of and the frequency of our engagement with different stakeholders has been different at times. But I think it is that collaboration which has mattered a lot. Having all the partners together on a particular activity. So tactical urbanism, as I said before, also tactical urbanism is one such activity where all the partners, irrespective of their thought processes, their approaches, and even our disagreements, tactical urbanism is one activity where all of us come together, because someone is coming there for beautification, someone is coming for road safety, someone is just coming for opportunities for a vandalism. I don't know, for whatever reasons they are coming, they are all coming together. And and post the tactical urbanism, I see every time, I mean, you must have heard me saying this a lot of times, but every time we do a tactical urbanism, the hopes of getting things implemented is, suddenly up the nerve. But let's see. I mean, implementation has been the biggest challenge for me
Yes.
also.
Well, I think WRI also have a really good way. They actually put in semi-permanent structure that would, those improvement will last more than 15 days. So the stakeholders,
Yeah,
the
so
resident can really see the
Kim,
benefits.
regarding the they are not basically permanent interventions, because then it would really, it will no longer be a tactical urbanism. So
Yeah.
what we have, our tactical urbanism approach has also, and the material list to be precise, has also, evolved in these years. What we have recently in the last 2-3 trials started doing is using spring bollards, and we just epoxy them to the ground. So they are sort of more permanent than the barricades, because barricades anyone can move. These things cannot be moved, but they are still mountable. People have been cutting them and everything, but it still leaves a mark. It still gives you a hint of, how the geometry is supposed to be. And if the government thinks that the trial is successful, or the geometry that we have created is, right, they can remove the bollards and, make a curve out of it.